Hello, I Laxmi Gupta, working as a lecturer, Rai School of Engineering, CSIT Department, Rai University, Ahmedabad. So here in this session, we are going to discuss about introduction to compiler. What is actually a compiler does. So now, first of all, we are going to discuss about what is compiler. So first of all, a compiler is a computer program that helps in translating the computer code from one programming language to another language. Basically, it translates the program written in the source language to the machine language. Means, what does it says about the compiler? So compiler is just a machine which used to translate the higher level language into lower language, lower level language, just because as we all know that our computer system is totally based upon binary converted languages. So whatever the program we are writing in terms of English like language, so uh, it is going to be converted into the machine language, that is our binary code. Okay, so the compiling process contains an essential translation operation and error detection. What does it says? Like in the simple terms, if we are talking about the C program, that means a C program contains lots of error if we are having such kind of syntactical or logical errors in our program. So what it does actually, in diagram you can see higher level language, which is our English like language. Then after comes compiler. Now this is the topic about we are talking, and here the phase is compilation error. And last one, which is output as a generated, that is our low level language, that is a binary code which our computer is basically able to understand or interpret. Now higher level language, that means our English language is provided to the compiler, and then compiler it interprets that particular language, and if any errors are there in our high level language or our English like language or programming language, it shows errors, and then after, if no any errors are there, it will generate binary code of that particular program. Now in the next, what kind of operations compiler perform? First of all, breaks down the source program into chunks and applies grammatical structure to each one. That means a particular program, it can be a large number of in the size, in terms of size it can be large. So it will first of all module wise breaks down in terms of chunks, that means small part of a program. And then after grammatical structure, as we know that it provides our grammatical mistakes if it is present in our code. So it will, what it does, it will check that particular grammatical errors in that particular structure of the code. Now the next point, enables you to create the symbol table and the target program you are after from the intermediate representation. As you all know, if in any particular C program, if there are error in line number 5, that means it will give the location of that particular line. So how it determines that where the particular error comes? So it will check from using symbol table and the target program. Now the third point, helps in compiling source code and detecting the errors. What it does, compile the source code. Source code is nothing but a high level language or programming code, and detect the error. Fourth one, organize and save all codes and variable. Obviously whenever we are working with any kind of code, so for processing purpose we are declaring variable or constant, so it will save all this in our disk. Now the next point is, read the full program, analyze it, translate it to a semantically similar language. That means whenever a program is being translated or compiled, so it will store that particular variable value into the hardware called register or accumulator. So it will store that particular variable or value in particular hardware devices. Now moving forward, types of compilers are there. Majorly we have three types of compiler. So first one is single pass, two pass and multi-pass compiler. What are they does? Let's see. So first of all, types of compiler. First type is single pass compiler. Okay, what it does? When all the phases of the compiler are present inside single module, it is simply called a single pass compiler. That means if we are going to translate a large program into particular binary language, that means there are some certain types of phases are there in between the higher level language and the lower language, or we can say target machine code. So here all the phases are combined in single module, that is our single pass compiler. It performs the work of converting source code to machine code. Obviously the compiler does the task of converting the higher level language to lower language, so it will generally perform the same task. And what are the example of single pass compiler? So Pascal language, which is not generally used nowadays, and in traditional system or very long ago it was used in Pascal language. So single pass compiler we were using in Pascal language. Okay, so you can see diagrammatically source code, compiler and target code. Now the next two pass compiler. Two-pass compiler is a compiler in which the program is translated twice. That means it will translate in two phases. Once from the front end and back from the back end, known as the two-pass compiler. That means here two phases are there in between the high level language and target machine code. So here you can see grammatically source code, then after front end phases are there, then intermediate representation of code, and backend, and last one is our target code, that means our binary code. Now what are the front end does? Front end, it maps legal code into the intermediate representation, as I told you using this diagram. And the next one, backend, it maps intermediate representation onto the target machine. That means in two phases our code is being compiled. Now the third one and last, multi-pass compiler. A program source code or syntax tree is processed many times by the multi-pass compiler. It breaks down a huge program into numerous smaller programs and runs them all at the same time. That means here we are not dealing with single phase or two phase. Here we are dealing with multiple phases of compiler during the translation of program. So it creates a number of intermediate codes. In the two-pass compiler, we have seen only two phases. That is, first one is front end and second one is back end. Now here we are going to create multiple intermediate representation. All of this multipasses use the previous phases of output as an input. That means here the process is cumulative type of. That means first phase, if generates any output, that is being passed to the next phase as an input. Now as a result, it necessitates less memory. Wide compiler is another name for it. So here we can say multipass compiler is also known as wide compiler. So diagrammatically you can see here the source code provided as an input, then front end will generate an intermediate representation, and it is being provided to middle end phase, which takes intermediate representation as an input. Then after it generates some output of it, and that output is going to be passed to the backend phase, which is takes intermediate representation, that is the output of middle end as an input, and then it will also process, and last machine code or target code is generated. In between this process, some errors can be determined by front end, middle end and back end phases. Okay, so here now moving forward. So thank you for the day.